So give us your first takeaway here.
Sure. One of the biggest fallers, one of the quote unquote losers, I hate to use that word because, anybody in the NFL is a winner, but one of the ADP losers, fantasy losers this summer has been Jaden Reed with that foot problem. And it coincides in a year where the Packers spend first round capital, something they're reluctant to do. They've been like the Steelers, very good at finding value picks in the NFL draft, but they go all in on Matthew Golden. And he's become the targeted wide receiver in this offense. We always trot the stat out, right? Since Devontae Adams left, nobody's gone past 100 targets. That's the standard. Lazard had 100 one year. Nobody got to 80 last year. I realized part of that was Jordan Love being hurt, was receivers being hurt. Can Matthew Golden, I realize he didn't run every route at Texas. So you can speak to that better than I can, but is he worth the increased ADP? Does the injury to Reed make him undraftable? I haven't pulled the trigger on him yet, even though he's a player I like. And the other thing with Jaden Reed, when you draft him, is you're just going crazy because he doesn't play in all packages. Now, again, that speaks to how the offense is generally run, although I do think Matt LaFleur is a smart guy. So I think the sea change in Green Bay with Golden rising and Reed falling is just one of the most important things to note of what's happened maybe the past 4-6 weeks.
No question. Jaden Reed's a guy that fantasy players definitely have been frustrated by, and this foot injury is definitely scaring people off as well. His ADP overall on Yahoo is 109.3. His last 7-day ADP, to your point, Scott, is 121st overall. He is definitely a guy that's fallen multiple spots. Matthew Golden, meanwhile, up from 113 to 105th overall. So definitely a guy, by the way, is rising, but not fast enough, Scotty. Not fast enough. I think Matthew Golden needs to be going even higher than that. I think Matthew Golden is closer to like a top 75 pick than the 100th overall pick or something like that. Because here's the deal. Like we always say, we made this point a lot in our session there, our live session at Las Vegas. Like, you don't want to run away from ambiguous situations, especially when the offense is going to be good. This is a good offense, period, end of story. Everything went wrong for this team last year, Scott, and they were still at a very explosive team. They were still a team that was consistent from a down-to-down perspective. Explosive play rate last year, 3rd overall. Their success rate was definitely a little bit lower, around like 49.4%, but that was still a top 12 mark. And this is a season where the quarterback was banged up all year. They 13th overall success rate in the NFL last year. EPA was a little bit higher, but still verifiable fringe, like top 10 offense, depending on what metric you're looking at. And this is a situation where the quarterback's banged up. The wide receivers couldn't catch passes. They were still a very good offense. So we want to attack this situation. And yeah, Matthew Golden is a guy that I have gotten higher and higher on, but he's a good player too, Scott. Like you mentioned, the route running at Texas, not a full field player, to your point. He definitely didn't run like every single route. I think he needs a little bit of work in like releasing against press man coverage on the quick short routes, but he definitely can win in the critical intermediate areas in breakers that this offense wants to prioritize. So he's a good player fit. And at this point, Dontavian Wicks is banged up. Christian Watson might not start he's not going to start the season active. Romeo Doubs, there's been like some trade rumors. I don't know if that's actually going to happen, but at least I think that Golden right now should be the odds-on favorite to lead this wide receiver room in production this year, Scott.
Yeah, and probably the highest snap share. Also, hats off to Matt LaFleur. In a year where Jordan Love was hurt and then compromised in some of the games he played, this was still not only a top 10 offense in points and yards, but they improved. They jumped 4 slots in points. They jumped 6 slots in yards. So even with Willis having to play a handful of games and with them probably scaling back the things they wanted to do with Jordan Love, look, what's fantasy about? Identifying coaches, offenses, infrastructures, ecosystems we like, and then draft their best players. Green Bay is one of those teams. As we close the book on the Packers, even though this discussion was about their wide receivers, I want to point out one other thing. I really believe Josh Jacobs is a first-round pick that goes in the second round. He's easy punch for me if he gets to that middle of the second round. And my builds are usually receiver, running back, or running back, receiver. I want at least one running back in the first 3 rounds, but it can go in a lot of different places. I have no problem with a hero RB build that's centered around Josh Jacobs, especially if I get him at his current ADP, which I just think is mispriced in round 2.
16th overall right now, as you said, clearly still a second-round pick. Would you rather have Josh Jacobs or Devon Achane right now, Scott?
Oh, it's Jacobs easily. Miami, I'm so scared of Miami. The offensive line, Tua, McDaniel lost his mojo last year. You talk about Tyreek Hill not having a long catch after week 1. And is he still on the reservation? Is he still with the program, mentally, emotionally? Just reminds me so much of Antonio Brown right now. So Achane, it's not that I'm dead set against Achane, but I feel better about Taylor. I feel better about Henry. I feel better about Jacobs. I even feel better about Chase Brown if push comes to shove. I want to be tied to that Bengals carnival. So I haven't drafted Achane yet. And it's really the pieces around him that are scaring me off.
2 weeks ago, I would have said Achane, but yeah, now I think I've moved Josh Jacobs ahead and Devon Achane down from like a tier 2 running back to this kind of group of guys where, yeah, if you want to break ties in favor of the guy who's currently not dealing with a calf injury like a Jonathan Taylor, even a Bucky Irving, I wouldn't fight you on that one bit. I'll move to another offense here that's similarly crowded, but it feels like we're getting some clues here. My first takeaway is that the Broncos skill position group needs a little bit of an update. Not so much in like who we know is the top guy. We still know Courtland Sutton is the top guy. I'm curious if he's somebody who's been in your plans at all, but they traded Devon Vele, who was kind of like a power slot player for them last year. Nice player, older guy that's now going to be playing with the New Orleans Saints. Meanwhile, Marvin Mims has run as like a pure outside receiver in the preseason. I want to bring up this point from Coach Speak Index. I might have talked about it on the show, but I'll talk about it here. He pointed out that last year, Tim Patrick ran out as the clear-cut number 2 receiver in preseason, and the Broncos cut him. Like he was the clear-cut every snap guy in preseason. Broncos cut him. So this is what I'm saying. I think the preseason analysis has kind of sort of jumped the shark. Like not every coach approaches preseason the same way. Clearly, Sean Payton does not. So I don't know that there's a ton of signal in this like, oh, Marvin Mims is playing every snap as an outside receiver. I think it would be a disservice to Marvin Mims, who had a first percentile success rate versus man coverage and reception perception, to run him out there as an outside receiver. What he does really well is exactly what he did last year. Could he expand on that and add some more real receiver stuff? I think that's potentially possible, but I'm not sure that it's totally likely. So I will bet against this usage for him being sticky, but it is something that a lot of people are talking about right now, that Marvin Mims has basically been a full-time outside receiver. The other 2 young guys that I think need a boost in this Denver wide receiver room, Scott, and it is a group that I'm like kind of obsessed with talking about because I think they need a true number 2, is number 1, second-year receiver Troy Franklin, who everybody with the team has said is ready for a breakout season. Now, Troy Franklin, in his prospect profile and reception perception, 70.3% success rate versus man, 82.4% success rate versus zone. So you're like, oh, those are really good numbers, right? Well, 26th percentile against press coverage, really struggled on contested catches, and cannot run routes over the middle of the field because he's just like too skinny. He doesn't separate over that middle of the field, which brings me to Pat Bryant, the rookie wide receiver, Scott, who that was exactly what he was really good at. Running these like big in-breaking routes over the middle, kind of fits into that power slot receiver mold. So I'm going a lot of different places here, Scott, but like, it's so hard to put this room together, right? And maybe the answer is just Evan Ingram. I'm open to that, but all these guys kind of like have a role, and their route trees all together probably fill in like one good player. So maybe that's none of them, Scott, but these are sort of the updates that I think people need to know as they try to find some sleepers in an offense that we all seem to agree is going to be good this year, but we're just not quite sure like where the value is for these secondary players.
Yeah, I think we're getting a couple of great screened options here, okay? Courtland Sutton, as I look at the Yahoo ADP, I see wide receiver 29. That's a mistake. Courtland Sutton was fabulous in the second half, played on the cusp of a wide receiver 1. And actually, Mims was really good in the second half too. And you say, well, why do you care about the second half? That's when they really took the training wheels off Bo Nix and let Bo Nix cook. Sean Payton offense, mobile quarterback. And it maybe helped that Nick stayed, and it didn't help Tyler Shuck, but it maybe helped Nick that he stayed in college a little bit longer, is maybe more pro ready than a rookie quarterback might have been. So Sutton, for one, is where he's going in ADP all summer has been a smash for me. I'm getting him on some teams, on some builds where he's my third receiver. I love that. I think he's even a viable wide receiver too. He's such a good boundary player. He succeeded even with the mess of quarterback they had before they had Bo Nix. So Sutton, I'm in on. Mims, he's a puzzling guy because his efficiency stats are so great, but there's things that he does that they don't like. They've been reluctant to give him a bigger role. He's been dynamic in the return game. He's a kick returner, punt returner. So this is a guy who needs to get more opportunity. But again, if you look at him over the second half of last year, he was like a wide receiver 3. He was somewhere in the top 40. Now you need splash plays more with Mims. He's going to be more boom or bust. I realize you can say that about 90% of the position anyway. There just aren't that many consistent guys, and they're going to go early. But he's still somebody I'm going to maybe place a bet on. As far as the other receivers here, they're second half guys for me. They're let somebody else draft them, let somebody else drop them, and then we'll reevaluate in October and November. They're the slower developing Polaroids. But I'm going to give you a strong buy on Courtland Sutton. And although I wouldn't want Sutton and Mims on the same build, I'm actually completely engaged in Mims at his current ADP also.
It's interesting because Courtland Sutton's a guy I have ranked like lower than that, man. And I think this is just a difference in how we like approach things maybe. But by the way, you like really might be right, honestly. Like you really might be right about this Courtland Sutton thing, because if this offense is going to take another step and Bo Nix is going to take another step, the leading target getter is going to be Courtland Sutton. But like, because I kind of know what Courtland Sutton is, and again, I'm not saying I'm right. This is just how I do things, but I'm not saying Scott's wrong and I'm right. Scott very much might be right. But like, I have guys like Roma Dunze, Ricky Pearsall, and Emeka Egbuka that I just rather take over Courtland Sutton, because I think I know I'm going to get on base with Courtland Sutton, but I think I might hit a home run with those 3 guys. I think I might have hit a home run with Travis Hunter or Tedero McMillan. So like, that's just why I've ended up having those guys ranked ahead of Courtland Sutton. But maybe that's not fair, Scott. Like maybe that's just really like, if I'm trying to win the rankings accuracy, I'm probably pushing Courtland Sutton up because he's gonna outproduce one if not all of those guys. But that's just, again, like where I'm targeting receivers there. I just haven't been drafting him as much.
Well, if you're trying to win the rankings accuracy, you just look at what Justin Boone says and just write that down and sign Matt Harmon.
True.
I'm going to give a long look to the Boone list before I commit to anything. I mean, glad to have him on the team this year. But in addition to a bunch of really talented people, it's a great staff. I know it's a different staff, and there's some guys who aren't here who we miss, but we have some really great talent here, and I hope you check those guys out. You've seen a lot of Justin on this program. Sutton had 135 targets last year, and again, that was trending higher in the second half of the year. I just feel like there's a genie out of the bottle here. It may sound weird to say about somebody in their late 20s, but I could see Courtland Sutton getting 145 or 150 targets. And again, whenever they throw a touchdown, it's most likely to be to him. You talked about maybe Engram being an answer. Man, that yards per catch, the touchdown column. I know it's Sean Payton's offense, but things have trended the wrong direction. Engram has not been a touchdown guy his entire career, which is strange to say for a tight end who usually they have to live that way. I haven't been tempted to draft Engram. You want to try to talk me out of it?
Not particularly. I think he is the ultimate, like, hey, he's just kind of there tight end. He's the very last guy in that tier that I'm not really drafting from, right? Where I'd prefer to take the next group of guys, which begins with Tucker Kraft and Jake Ferguson and all those names we mentioned earlier. It's just, again, like more of a structural build thing. One thing I'll say about the Engram, though, is that when Devon Bailey got traded, I was like, oh, the power slot position is open. And like, I do think that's in the long run, maybe not week 1, but I think long run, that's Pat Bryant's position. People kind of came back with, oh no, Evan Ingram's going to play the role. Guys, I'm telling you from an on-field perspective, the move tight end and the power slot receiver can both be on the field together. And if you want evidence of that, go up and look at the Detroit Lions offense, where Sam Laporta is the move tight end and Amon-Ra St. Brown is kind of the power slot receiver. St. Brown plays more outside now than earlier in his career, but like 2022, or 2023, like stuff like that, that's when that was like popping off for that team. Lastly, just to update on the Courtland Sutton thing, and then we can throw to break here, Scott. You have Courtland Sutton 22 among wide receivers. I have him 35. Mr. Smart Man himself, Justin Boone, has him at 31. So he's like splitting the difference between the two of us. So maybe that's the right answer on Courtland Sutton.
I can tell you why the market is overrating Evan Engram, by the way. People, and Michael Salfino came up with this point. People just like saying Joker. He's going to be the Joker. I don't know. Yes. I think whenever anybody's labeled the Joker, their ADP gets a little bit, wacky.